All right, let's do this again. I was told you can't hear me. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I don't think it's morning anywhere yet. You should be able to hear me now. Sorry about that. Let me know if you hear any background music. Do you still not hear me? You should be able to hear me now. Better. All right, now we can hear. Do you hear any background music? Because I'm piping in some little bit of music here, and I don't know if you're able to hear it. No music again, huh? I thought for sure this would fix it. Oh, darn it. Let me just try one thing here. Settings. No music, no music. I think I have to install like some loopback or something. So I will try that again next time, but no worries, no worries. We're going to have some fun today. I am on this path of trying to live stream some more. I realize that like I do all these things every day and some of them might be useful. You know, when I watch like YouTube tutorials or presentations at a conference, I'm always like trying to pick out that one thing that like I didn't know or that like sparks me to go learn some more. So I'm going to just start sharing some like everyday things that I use, and hopefully you'll be like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And I think that's part of the fun of live streaming, because like I have some things I want to work on and maybe share with you, but it's not scripted and we can kind of just go wherever we want to go. And I edit a lot of videos and it's a lot of work. So like recording something and editing it and publishing it and talking about it, like it's a lot of work. These live streams, I just get to push record and have some fun. So let me know where everybody's joining us from. Again, thanks for everyone joining me live. You guys are awesome. These things are, I remember live streaming probably like 10 years ago and I had like 1 or 2 people and I was like, well, 1 or 2 people is good. That's fun. But man, it's so much more fun when all my friends are here. So thank you. I'm going to be working on a little bit of code today. I have a Spring AI workshop. Some of that code is on GitHub, or all that code's on GitHub. It's not updated to the latest milestone, so 1.0.0 milestone 3. And I'm going to update that, and we could talk through some of that code if you're interested. I also want to like get rid of some of the examples in there and maybe add some other ones. We'll see. I got about an hour today to do this, so we'll just see what we can get through, and whatever we can't, we'll do in another stream. And I have a lot of good ideas for some streams. I figured we could jot some of those ideas down today as well. Let me see here. Let's make that a little bigger. All right. Does Java have a registered tone or melody, such as a registered character Duke? Not that I know of, but you know, Java is that coffee logo. So picture yourself in a coffee shop. I think that's what I'm going for with some of this music that I'm listening to right now. You know, I'm in a coffee shop, chilling, just writing some code. That's the kind of vibe I'm going for. So we'll get this figured out so that we can all kind of relax together on these streams. I think I was reading somewhere that this should work like this, the background music, but I think I need to install something like loopback. Let me try this playthrough and see if that works. But if I get something like loopback installed, I think then I can add that as like an audio interface and like play it through. Because I'm just playing my music through Epidemic Sound in a browser tab right now. And I do that because this is royalty-free music that I pay a subscription for. So if it's on stream, then it's not going to give me a strike on YouTube. So, hello from Denmark. Pratish from Mumbai. I've never been to Mumbai. I've never been a lot of places. I really, you know, I've been trying to like submit to other conferences around the world so I can visit places. I think I mentioned last time I was really excited to go to India this year, and then I didn't get to go. Hopefully next year I can do that. I've submitted to all of the DevOps conferences, and I have not gotten picked for any of those yet, which is a bummer. I want to go to, I know like they have so many great conferences. London and Greece, man, those would be two really amazing places to visit. Hi, Dan from Turkey. Or is that, did you spell that wrong or am I pronouncing that wrong? I'm sorry. Hello, everyone from the Czech Republic. Hi, Dan. I'm good with Hibernate. I want to start with Spring. Can I explore your channel as a Spring developer or Spring beginner or any other suggestions? Yeah. So we talked about this last time, but some great resources. Obviously, YouTube, I'm a big one on. The documentation. So if you go over to Spring Data, springio.projects, go to Spring Data. That documentation will get you up and running. If you're good with Hibernate, that'll translate to Spring Data. You can use Spring Data JPA with that. So yeah, I think if you've never, well, you say you're a beginner with Spring. So yeah, some great resources like Spring Academy. Obviously, I have some. Let's go ahead and share my screen again. Let's try that one. If you go over here, I mentioned this on our other live stream, but I have a couple of free courses on YouTube. This one was through Free Code Camp. Thanks to them for letting me on the channel. And then this one, which I mentioned too, is doing really good lately. So these are some kind of crash courses. I think we used Spring Data JDBC in those, but again, you can plug in Spring Data JPA for that and do the same thing. Let's see. Spiking neural networks, please. I'm not sure. Spiking. Were you going for Spring? Let me know what you're talking about there. Hello from Hungary. Someone made a vector DB using Spring Boot and tested it using Spring AI. Oh, nice. Like an actual implementation of a vector database in Spring? That's interesting. Hi, everyone from India. Here you are. I joined on LinkedIn. Thank you, Nico. Thanks for coming. Hello from Germany, another place I want to visit. I don't know what I have more, places I want to visit or tutorials in the backlog that I need to record. Love your videos. Keep it up. Oh, my friend Jitter Ted is here. Spring Data JDBC greater than JPA. I'm a fan of Spring Data JDBC. And Ted has talked about this a lot, and I think we, as a community, talk about this a lot. Like, JPA, Hibernate are really great for like, let's get something up and running quickly. But if you don't really understand everything that's going on underneath the hood, it's really hard to like debug and find like what's going wrong. So I remember banging my head against the desk many times for that. Hello from Turkey. Can you please mention prerequisites to go with Spring Boot? Sure. I think first and foremost, you should have some Java experience or Kotlin experience, right? Or even Groovy. You can use Groovy with Spring, but you should understand Java. I would say at a beginner to / intermediate level, and especially in something like Spring, understanding some of the things that are going on behind the hood. If you've never seen an annotation before in Java, that's something that you want to brush up on. Yeah, I would say really just that. And, you know, once you have that like intermediate level of Java, you can kind of get better at Java by writing Spring apps. I know I have in the past. So yeah, I think that's really it. And then I say, you know, I say this all the time, but if you want to learn Spring, you got to have like a really good idea of what you're trying to build. So focus on something that you want to build because Spring can do so many things. So the example I think from yesterday was like, I want to build a web app that talks to a MySQL database. There's a clear path there. There's a few components you got to learn to do that, but these two courses that I go through, Spring.Academy is a great resource to get up and running. The documentation is great, really great place to start. I think Yeah, we mentioned this too, that I'm much more leaning into like I jump into the docs first before I like watch any tutorials or read any books. Like the docs for me, not just with Spring, but with any kind of technology, that's kind of where I start. If you want to come to Germany, you are welcome to get a beer. Oh, that would be nice. That would be a lot of fun, Nico. I've learned a lot from Dan's videos, tutorials. They are specific, relative, short, to the point, and hands-on. That's great. Thank you, Ali. That is what I go for. I want to be informative. I don't want to have a lot of fluff in there. Specific topics because yeah, I can't make 2-hour videos every week. The 10 to 20 minute videos I make take a long time. So, Dan, how is this possible to build some models using Python, TensorFlow, etc., and now use the model in a Spring application with Spring Boot and Spring AI? How can one use the model in Spring? So I believe that, I've never tried this, so I'm just guessing here, but like you can use Ollama to run open source models. So I run Ollama with something like Meta's Llama 3.2, and I can run that on my local machine. So I don't know if I've ever tried to like run my own model though. So I don't know how that would work, but I would think you should be able to use something like Ollama. And if you're interested in that, I have a video on that. So Ollama. So Ollama with Spring, there's also a web UI. So when you run Ollama on your own machine, it's basically a command line. So you like type in a question and ask a model something and it's on your shell. You can run this web UI, which gives you this nice like chat GPT like interface against something like Ollama. So those two videos may be something that might help out. Last week I tried writing, what is this? Hold on. Last week, oh, I'm back there again. Last week I tried writing back propagation code in Java and Python. Java was really difficult. Do you think it's suitable language for artificial intelligence? Yeah, again, I don't have enough experience to, so when we talk about artificial intelligence these days, there are two sides of this coin, right? On one side, we are building and training the different models out there. So maybe somebody just mentioned they're building their own model. Maybe you're taking an existing model and refining it and kind of making it fit your purposes. There's a lot of tools in the Python space to do that with. There's some in the Java space as well. But I don't have a lot of experience building large language models. I'm not in the machine learning world, data science world. The other side of this coin is being able to consume large language models or artificial intelligence. And that is polyglot, right? Every language out there can take advantage of this now. And so, yes, Java can talk to a REST API. But once you get into building like real world applications, there are some things you're going to come across you're going to have to solve for. Frameworks like Spring AI make that really easy. So I guess it really depends on what your use case is. Yeah, I think obviously Spring AI is really great for this. What is Spring AI? Is it all about integration? Are there some inbuilt modules coming up? Oh, great question. I think that's a really good place to start because I'm going to jump in and look at some code. So let's do that. Okay. Let's see. Where should we start? Actually, I want to do a couple things and then we'll get to that. First off, again, this is all live streams all about me kind of showing off some tools. If you don't know, there's a really great program out there called Raycast if you're on a Mac. I believe there's one coming to Windows now soon too. I love this thing. I find like new things to use in Raycast all the time. I create all these quick links. So if you see me type like 8080, I don't have to go to the browser and type in localhost 8080 or port 3000, which I use all the time. Another thing I do is like, okay, I got to go to GitHub and check out this repo that I've been using lately. So I can just type in GitHub and go to latest repos. It'll pull my latest repos up. These are the ones that I've been using lately, or I can just go back and just go right to my GitHub account. And then I can come in here and say AI workshop, right? So I'm a big fan of Raycast. Want to do something. It's been on my list to like build a integration for Raycast with the Spring Initializer. So that is one thing I want to do on a live stream. I just want to take some notes here. The things that we're going to do in the live stream in the future here. Write an integration for Raycast and the Spring Initializer. Right. The other thing I want to do is on my website, I have courses, but I want to change this to like video and then have a drop down here. So I'll have courses, I'll have YouTube, and I'll like highlight some YouTube videos there. And I want to have a live stream section. So add live streams to the website because I want to get a schedule together so you know when I'm live streaming. And I also want to have kind of like a podcast, like show notes, because I did something interesting yesterday. So we had like 2.5 hours on the stream, and I was able to go ahead and take the video of that. I was able to transcribe it to video. Let me make sure we are on Do Not Disturb. We are. So once I have the video transcription, now you can do some fun things. Now you can go over to AI and say, based on the transcription, can you pick out all of the questions that were asked that I read out loud and each of my answers? So for the previous live stream, here's some questions that were asked by you, and here's some answers that I gave. And this is just awesome. Now I could dump this into like a show notes for the live stream. I also went back and said, okay, yeah, also give me like an introduction and a conclusion and all the questions and give it to me in Markdown. So now I can just copy this and throw this in the live stream show notes for that day. So I think that's awesome. That if you don't know, I use Claude for everything. I have all these projects set up to like kind of really streamline everything that I'm doing, which has been fun. So that's another thing I want to do. I'm trying to think what else was there. I think that's it for now. That'll be a lot. So to kind of put those two together, that'll be fun. Obviously, answering questions and coding. And like anything with AI. So I'm just taking some notes here. So that was fun. Started learning Spring AI from your videos. Very informative and very simple to understand. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Dan. What is the easiest front end to get done as a backend dev? Currently using Vaadin, but there are more easy ones. I think Vaadin's like, if you're a Java developer, that's one of the easiest ones out there. JHipster is also cool because it kind of packages up everything. So like the front end and the back end, and you can kind of learn from that, but you will need to like know some of the front end skills, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. But that's a good one. Is there something like LangGraph planned for Spring AI to create AI agents? I don't know. I am talking to Mark Polk later today. I can ask him. But I know we were talking about AI agents the other day, and that's one of the things on my radar as well. So stay tuned. Reading PDF files or other formats using Spring AI to get formatted data like JSON. Good idea, or will it be unreliable? Reading PDF files or other formats to get So you can read PDF files without using AI. So like I just did a video on, if you go to videos, I just did one RAG for Java developers. And in that we did some RAG. So we basically took some structured data in like a PDF document and put it into a vector database. So Spring, so start.spring.io. And if you look at this, there are document readers on here. So document reader, so I can take something like a PDF or Markdown and read that document in, and then it can split it up into chunks. So you could easily do that. You could read in a PDF document or a markdown document and then have AI transform that into something that you need. But these are great for like reading in documents and then taking them and storing them in a database. Whoops. What I did was run Spring with ZMQ and put that Python model on while true loop and for messages using ZMQ. It was a toy project, but it worked. Lower GPU. Infinite, you are infinitely miles ahead of me on that stuff. So I'm gonna learn from you. So let me know when you're streaming, and I'll come by. All right. So we are gonna do a couple things with this. So this is my Spring AI workshop. This is a repo where you can find a lot of the code that I go through, whether I'm presenting on Spring AI in an hour or in 4 hours. You can see I haven't updated in a while, so I got to get these updated. I have another 2 presentations coming up on this, and I want to get it updated. And there are a couple things. One, we got to update to the newest version, milestone 3, and see if anything breaks there. And then probably get rid of some of these examples because they're a little bit older, and hopefully add some new ones. Okay, so let's go over to everyone's favorite light mode. You would not believe the comments that I get on YouTube. When I always kind of switch between light mode and dark mode just to like make everyone happy. And I think in my old age, I prefer light mode. It's just easier to read for me. But man, when I post a video with light mode, I get a lot of comments going, this is a great tutorial, but I can't watch it in light mode. I'm like, are you crazy? It's so much easier to read for me. I know like it's cooler to dark mode, and I guess the fonts and the colors look great, but for me, this is much more readable. But just know that I do both to please you all. If it were up to me, I would be in this mode probably all the time. So, all right. So the idea behind this too is I have a bunch of examples in here that I just run from a single project. We are working on some examples for the Spring AI project where it'll kind of be split up into different projects. This is just everything's in one project, and these are just my examples that I run through. So let's start with the POM. So when we create, I'm way behind. I'm 2 versions behind. That's okay. So this happens when you go out and create a new project. So if I go here and I create a web project and I create something to talk to OpenAI, if I go to Explore, you'll see we kind of stick in this Spring AI version. So this is 1.0.0 milestone 3. And then we include dependency management for the Spring AI BOM. And that's pulling from Spring milestones. So all I'm going to do is let's update this. Save. Let's reload Maven. All right, so far so good. All right, that was easy enough. No breaking changes. That was good. Now I am updating some code for someone to go from, I want to say Spring AI 0.0.7 snapshot to 1.0.0 milestone 3, and that did not go so well. There are a lot of things that have changed since then. So even a lot of the videos I put out early on with Spring AI, a lot of code has changed, especially in the 1.0 milestone 1 release. So just know if you're updating from some older code, that this may not be as easy because it's been such a fast changing project, because trying to keep up with the fast changes of AI. So let's start off here. I like these examples, but I don't know. Let's see. So if you're not aware, the way to get a, let's start here. And why are we doing this? Let's preach let's do what we preach, Dan. So I want to create a quick link for Spring AI. So Spring, this is the link, save quick link. I want to create another one for start. HTTPS start.spring.io, save quick link. So now I can just go Spring. There we go. Now I can go start. There we go. So view all projects, Spring AI, learn, reference doc. Great. Cool. So the chat clients API, we have chat models here. We can talk to a lot of the different large language models out there. There's a nice new comparison there if you haven't seen this yet. So the table compares chat models supported by Spring AI, whether they're multimodality, they have tools, observability, built-in JSON. So these are all the providers. Is it multimodality or is it just text? Does it support tools? So being able to like call out and do something real time. Does it support streaming? Retry, observability, etc. So this is a really nice comparison matrix that Christian put together. So definitely check this out if you haven't seen it. And then there's all these different large language models out there. So it would be a pain in the butt if you had to write code to one specific model. Like here's an OpenAI chat client, or here's a Ollama chat client, etc. So the way this works is you just use the chat client. This is an interface. And then based on what is on the class path, in this case, that is going to be OpenAI. So we have the Spring AI, OpenAI Spring Boot Starter. So because of that, there is a single one of those that gets created. So the way that we can kind of get an instance here is by using the chat client builder. This gets wired up for you automatically. I also did a video on this that if you wanted to turn that off, so I don't want a builder to get created automatically for me. The reason you might want this is if you wanted to use multiple LLMs. So you kind of turn that auto configuration off, right? Don't create a builder for me. And you just create a bean yourself. So I've done a video on that if you're interested in that. But we get this builder and then we can create a new chat client, or we get a new chat client through that builder's build method. Then we can go ahead and use it. And we can say, in this case, we're just asking for a joke. The default is tell me a dad joke about dogs. We call prompt. We pass in the user message. So when we talk about talking to LLMs, there are different roles. The user message is usually the user query. There's a system message, which is like an overall context of how you want the LLM to act. And then there's roles like the assistant, which is the response. There's roles like functions, which is, hey, here's a function that you might be able to use if you want to get the current weather or get the current price of a stock, or send an email or talk to some other service in our organization, etc. So the user message is really the one that we care about. This is the message that we're asking to the LM. We call out, we get a string back. Now this is what this used to be, so I'm going to get rid of that now. Basic example of how to use a chat client and pass a message to all the LM. So let's run this because I want to see if this works. So I do have a couple things in here. So no matter what LLM you're talking to, you probably got to configure a couple different things. One, the API key for this one, which is OpenAI, and two, which model you're going to talk to. Because with every large language model, they have all these different models. Pricing varies, and different things can vary. So I'm being very specific with the model that I want to use here. And then these are for some functions that we can get into later. So let's see here. Started. So now we can use any client to make a request to localhost 8080 because this is at the root. So we can say HTTPIE, make a GET request to localhost 8080. And that talks to OpenAI's GPT-4o. Why did the dog sit in the shade? Because he didn't want to be a hot dog. That's great, but I get that same joke all the time. Please send me other jokes. Great, okay. So there's the chat controller. Yeah, I'm gonna keep these in there too because, so one of the other questions that people have was, okay, I passed this message in, but that was like a string. That was a hard-coded string. What if I want to like replace some variables in there? So here's an example of that. The user method does take a string, but it also takes a consumer of a prompt user spec. So the prompt user spec can take in things like text. Here's the string I want to ask. It could take in a resource, so it could read in a file. If you wanted to store like your prompt in a text in a resource somewhere, you can take in that. It can also take in a param or params, and this is a way to replace those parameters in that text. It can also take in like media. And then this is, again, a consumer. So this is a functional interface with that single method except, which means we can use a lambda expression here. So if this was multiple lines, I can come in and add these braces like this, but it's not. So we can just pass this in and say, here's the text. Tell me a joke about topic. And then I want to replace that parameter topic with the topic that gets passed to me. So now in this case, I can say this, but, oh no, jokes by topic. And then I can say, whoops, topic is equal to computers. Why was the computer cold? Because it left its windows open. Not this computer, GPT. But yeah, so that's a way to kind of replace those in there. And then the only other difference here is that in these two cases, we are getting content back, which just returns the string. So you don't have to like go through everything that comes back and figure out what the actual result is. But if you wanted more metadata about the response, you can say jokes with response here. This returns the chat response, which is not just a string. And it says like all of this information. So this is pretty important stuff. So metadata, here's the model, here's the metadata, here's the rate limit. So we have rate limiting, tokens limit, tokens remaining, usage. This is really cool. I didn't even know this was in milestone 3. I thought this was just being added to the metadata. But this is important. We talk about tokens a lot. Tokens are the currency of LLMs, right? We have to pay for what we are sending in the request and what we are getting in the response. And so being able to identify what we are using in those, even just in this demo, that's really cool. Now, there's some observability stuff in Spring AI that lets you, hey, let me dig through the logs and find out everything that's happening here and what these requests looks like. And those have those tokens in them as well. But these are nice. So prompt tokens is 14, 13 generation on the way back. Total tokens is 27. For this total request, I basically paid 27 tokens. You can think of input tokens, at least for GPT-4, I think is $2.50 for 1 million. I believe $10 for 1 million back, something like that. Is the code proprietary or open source? No, this is open source. So this is my AI workshop code that I've been going through. You can find this on github.com/Dan Vega, spring-AI-workshop. All right. So that's there. This is cool though. If you want the response with more metadata, you can return a chat response. And now we can see what tokens are being sent back. Here's the output. This is the actual content. Again, the metadata on that. Were there any tools calls? So this is like a function. In this case, no, we didn't call any functions. And then some more metadata. So cool. I like this. I may want to get away from jokes at some point and use something a little better, but this is okay. Okay, so the other one is streams. Where am I visiting next? Besides Disney World. So the other thing of this is the chat controller that we saw, we use this call method. And this is basically saying this is a blocking call. So send the request, let the LM generate the response, and send it back. And we know that if we use something like ChatGPT, that is not what happens, right? I'm visiting Orlando. Give me 10 places to visit, right? So we start getting that immediate response back to us. This is a much better user experience than having to wait for the entire response to come back. So we want to do that too. If we have larger responses, we want to be able to do that. And Spring AI makes this really easy. So if I were to use this one, it would just block and we'd wait for the whole message to come back. But we have a stream method. So now instead of returning a string, I'm returning a flux of strings. So now what I can do is basically say, whoops, I got to set -- stream here. Let's say 8080/stream. And now you'll see we start to get that response right away. And so you can translate this to the front end. So you can have a front end application that is constantly getting that information back, right? So you can pipe that out. And I've got an example on that as well. Streaming AI, a Spring AI streaming chatbot. So if you want to see, we built like a user interface that can consume a stream like that and like pipe it out on the front end. Okay. So those are good. This I probably want to update. We'll get back to that in a second. Okay, prompt. Yeah, I probably want to come up with some better examples for this. This time, what are the most popular tools? What was the idea behind this? This was, yeah, I don't even think I need this now because I think part of this was I was just trying to show that you could replace these tokens with a parameter, and we've done that in the kind of simple example. I do like that we're showing off how to kind of externalize one of those messages, but I think we can do that in a better place. And then, yeah, I had this as the system response. So again, there's different types of messages when we're talking to an LLM. One is the user. I say, tell me a really interesting fact about a famous pirate treasure. Keep your answers to 1 or 2 sentences. But at a system level, I'm saying no matter what, I could have 10 other messages in here. No matter what, every time somebody asks a message, I want you to respond to any question in the voice of a pirate. So what that looks like is one of the most tantalizing pirate treasures. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you get the idea. So again, it's giving it that system context. And this becomes very important. Now, I know this is like a trivial example and pretty silly, if we're being honest. I've done examples where it's like, okay, respond in all caps. And it's just showing that no matter what message we send, this is how the system's going to act. And so I'll show you a couple other ones. So I have all these projects on Claude. Let's say this one. So in Claude, you can basically set a system level message for a project, which is why I use it a lot more than ChatGPT. So at ChatGPT, you can set a system level for everything you do. But I have different projects that I work on. So I don't want one system level message. Now you can go in and create your own GPTs. But for me, Claude Projects makes this much easier. You just create a new project. I can create a system level set of instructions. I can also say, here are some words I never want to use. Here are some of the previous blog posts that I've written. So I want you to kind of write in my style and tone. But this is like the system level message, if you will. So I'm not going to read this whole thing. It just goes into like everything that you should do when you're writing this blog post, right? And all the way down to the front matter. This is what I want it to look like. And so while this is a silly example, you can start to see what you might do with this, right? Like, hey, here is the style. Here, first off, there's like some different, let me go back to that too. So I have this newsletter called Bite-Sized AI, and I have this post on how to talk to robots. Prompt engineering is important. Some key principles of effective prompt engineering. There's practical tips, but there are frameworks out there. Now, you don't need to follow these for a T, but a lot of these have the same kind of things, right? And I want to provide some context. Here's the relevant background. I want to assign a role to you. Like you are an expert blog post writer, or you are I have another one for creating timestamps from my videos. So you're assigning a role. Like every time we use this, this is your role. Here is what I clearly want you to do. Here is the style and tone I want you to use. So you really get to set the context for what this particular chat client is going to do. And so you can set this at the default system level. You can also come down and say that I want to set it here for just this specific one, right? So I'm going to leave that one. I want to maybe change this, though. I like having this here. I'm going to have to think about that. I think a really good example would be like one of those longer system level messages that I obviously don't want to include in code. I want to like externalize that somewhere else. But in this case, you could see we have prompts, YouTube string template. What does it stand for? ST? ST. Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe string template. I know you can go out and search for these too. You can ask for different templates out there. When it comes to prompting, you can go out and ask for, you can be iterative with AI and creating some of these system level prompts. I've done that as well. But yeah. Multi-model, I have memory, functions. I don't know if I can do multiple LLMs because I would have to. I don't even know if I need to show that. Let's just look. So my rag example. I like that, but I want to update that. And I also want to add a PG. I want to add an example for my PG vector store. So come back and do that. And then have AI, multiple chatbot with memory. We have an example of that, so that's good. So this is just an example of talking to OpenAI in Java. So again, if you don't know, you can talk to the different LLMs out there, including OpenAI. It's just a REST endpoint. So you can do this from curl. I think I have a curl script in here somewhere. You can do this right from curl. You can do this from Java. You don't need any other frameworks. But what I go through in the workshop and in the presentations is basically like, there are all these problems that are going to come up that you're going to have to solve for. I think one of the biggest ones for me is like structured output. So I'll kind of show that off real quick. So let's look at this simple example. So I basically say generate a filmography for Anthony Hopkins for the year 2010. But what does that mean? Like, we haven't been very specific to the LM. We're not saying like what we want back. We're just saying, hey, generate me a filmography. So if I say 8080. So 1, The Wolfman. Here's a synopsis. 2, you will meet a tall, dark stranger. Here's a synopsis. But this could be different every single time. We haven't really been like very descriptive of what we want back. So in my case, I have this type. And a lot of what we start to do when we're building real world applications is talking to AI, getting some response back. We need to take that response and turn it into a type. We're going to be working with types in our application. So in this case, I have a record and I have actor films, and then I want a actor back, which is of type string. And I want a list of strings back for the movies. And that's all I want. I don't want all this synopsis or whatever else you want to generate. This is what I want. So you could start to get very creative in your prompts and telling it you want a very specific type of JSON back and these fields, and maybe even give it a schema. But that's kind of a pain in the butt, right? And then in a normal Java application, if you do that, you got to deserialize that JSON into a type. Fun times, things that I want to do. So what you can do is just say, instead of calling content to get the string back, you can say, turn that into an entity for me. And we pass in that type. And then Spring can basically take in any type there. And what it does is does that behind the scenes for us. It is asking, in this case, OpenAI, to return JSON. Here's a JSON schema spec, which you should follow in your response. So now OpenAI sees that and says, okay, they don't care about a synopsis. What they want is an actor, and they want the films that actor was in. So now if we say films, you can see that we get the actor and then a list of movies they were in. So again, very easy to do. And then films list. So again, we're using that same type, but now we're saying generate a filmography for Denzel, Leonardo, and Tom Hanks. And give me back that parameterized type reference. So now we should have 3 of those things back. So Denzel, Leonardo, and Tom Hanks. So pretty cool. And then you can even do the same thing we did before, which was, hey, we're going to plug in an actor here. You're going to replace that param with whatever the request parameter that was sent in, and we're going to turn that into a type. So again, I think the question I get a lot is, like, we can call a REST API with Spring, with Java. What do I need something like Spring AI for? And these are the types of things. When you start building real-world applications, you're working with types. You want structured output. Spring AI makes this really easy. Spring AI makes it really easy to connect to different LLMs. A lot of customers we work with are using multiple LLMs. Maybe they use one for text generation. Maybe they use one for multimodality. Maybe we're working with images or audio. And maybe they're just trying different LLMs out to see which one works for their use case. When we get into stuff like RAG, being able to use an embedding model to store vectors into a vector database and have vector databases auto-configured for you. These are all things, streaming support, memory support. So I've done this in a video too, but here's a really good example of that. Let's rerun this. And if we say 8080/chat, hello, Dan. How can I assist you today? I'm sorry, but I don't have access to your personal data. So that is basically telling us that it doesn't remember our previous conversation. And this is important when we talk about the products that's sitting on top of the LLMs, like ChatGPT. This is a product, and the actual model, which is GPT-4 behind the scenes. The web is stateless. It doesn't remember these conversations. The product that sits on top of it is remembering that previous conversation that we had with it. So Spring AI comes with a bunch of default advisors, and one of those is a message chat memory advisor. So we can basically retain information. Now again, actually, let me do that. Let me do that. So I want to show this though, because that'll make more sense. So let's do that again. So this time it should say timeout. It says your name is Dan. But what you'll see is the total tokens is going up every time now, because every time we ask it a question, now we are basically adding to that, right? So it's timeout again. So see total tokens. So remember, while this is cool, there are limits to this, right? We don't want to like build this huge request that we got to send every single time. One, there is a cap on the number of tokens we can send to an LLM. Everyone is different. Google Gemini by far has the largest context window. On their pro level, it's like 2 million. But even then, like we're paying for this, right? So again, tokens are the currency of LLM. So just be aware of that. And then I really like this function call, but I want to add another function call too. So let's return the chat response there too. So I have the city controller. I'm going to basically say you are a helpful AI assistant answering questions about cities around the world. If I were to run this without this function and say, what is the current weather like in Cleveland? It's going to say, hey, I don't know. I don't have access to real-time data. But what I've done here is provided a default function called current weather function. And I have a function configuration here. And what this does is by setting a description, this is kind of telling the LLM, if you get a request that looks like this, I actually have a function that you can call, well, that you could send back to me and I'll call and send back to you that will answer that particular request. So it's just using java.util.function. This is the request. This is the response. And it's going to return something. In this case, we're calling a weather service. This weather service has some configuration for talking to weatherapi.com. I have my API key externalized in a environment variable. And all we're doing is using the REST client to make a call out and get a response back, right? And so if we were to look at that, I can say HTTP 8080/cities. What is its message? Current weather in Cleveland is sunny, 54, wind blowing at, and humidity is 58%. So again, trivial example, but you could start to think about things you could do within your organization, right? What if somebody was asking about customers? You had a little chatbot about your customers. How many current customers are on SaaS product 1, right? The LLM is not going to know about that, but you can have a function that goes off to another service in your organization and asks that and gets that response back. And now your LLM can generate a response based on more context that it has, right? Because again, LLMs have some limitations, one of which is it's trained on data up to a certain date. So you can go ask every LLM what their training cutoff date is. But they also don't have access to your private information, hopefully, right? So if they don't have access to your internal information, there are ways to get it. We can go call a function to get some information. We can store a bunch of data in a vector database and ask for that and send similar context to the LLM before it generates a response. So those are some ways to kind of circumvent some of the limitations that LLMs have. So I don't think I'm going to do anything else on this today. I just wanted to upgrade this, honestly, and see if it was still working. So we're on M3 now. So I'm going to just push this right now. And I'll come back and work on this another time. So again, this is the GitHub Spring-AI-workshop. If anyone's interested in me presenting that somewhere, please feel free to reach out. I love talking about it. That's our live streams. What was the other thing I wanted to do? Spring. I thought I saw. Yes, this is what I saw too. Spring Security 6.4.0 RC1, so release candidate 1 is out. There are some really interesting things in here. So support for passkeys. If you aren't sure what passkeys are, you haven't used them before, that's okay. It's kind of new to me too. Go watch a presentation from Rob Winch at Spring One. He did a couple there. But man, if you want to learn about Spring, watching Rob live code is awesome. But support for passkeys is now there. Allow logout plus JWT. JWT type for reactive. What are you complaining about? Push rejected. Oh. All right, we'll come back to that. So that's cool. Polish the OAuth2 client configuration. Yeah, just a lot of really great things going into 6.4. So that means we're on release candidate 1. That should be coming soon. That's exciting. And then Spring Boot 3.3.5 is available. Cool. So go ahead and look through the release notes on that. Cool. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer them. If not, I might call this. Why can't I remove that now? That's why. But yeah, just trying to hang out, get some code done. I think, what do we want to do next? In the next one, I want to get some of these, I want to find a way to get these on the website. So again, I'm probably going to change this to like a video. Then I have a section for courses. I have a section for YouTube and a section for live streams. And then I'll kind of put the schedule up there with past ones. And then the past ones, we'll go ahead and put all the questions in. So waiting for a video with agents. I hear you. Me too. Somebody make one. It's on my list. It's on my list. At least to like start looking more into. I haven't dove into that a lot. So I got to dive in a little bit further, understand it, because there's so many definitions out there of what an agent is, what a agentic means. I know OpenAI came out with a framework for building agents. I know everybody's talking about them now, so. Cool. Man, you guys showed up. I love this. Thanks for hanging out. If you got any questions, I'll go ahead and answer those. If not, I got to take off here soon. I think I got to talk with my friend Mark Pollock about a couple things. And then the kids have trunk or treat tonight. They go around to different cars in their parking lot at school and do a little trick-or-treating. And there's a little dance party afterwards, so it's a lot of fun. Actually, let's do one other thing. Oh, we got a second. Yeah. All right, and then the other thing is I'm gonna figure out this music because again we're going for the coffee shop chill vibe, hang out, write code, answer questions, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. All right, no questions. I'm gonna call this. I got some other things to finish up before my day's over, but we'll see if we can't come back and do it again tomorrow. And again, I want to get a schedule going. I can't do it every single day, but if we get a kind of schedule in place and we have these transcripts, we might be able to do some interesting things with it. Oh, that's another thing I want to add to that. I want to create a voting system for content. So think of, I have all these ideas for content. Usually that means video these days, right? But for a video, there'll be a repo with code that you can take a look at. There'll be a blog post associated with it. There'll be social media posts around it. So when I say content, it's usually centered around a video these days, or potentially a longer video in the form of a course. But I have all these things that I get asked to do. I get all these things that I want to do. I get all these things in questions from different platforms of things that people want created. It's hard to keep up with that. And I'd like to create like kind of, I have a backlog, but I want that backlog to be visible so that I can get like votes on it. It's like, hey, 20 people want this particular video. That's what I'm making next. Because I'm here for you guys. I mean, every now and then I'll sneak one in of what I want to do, but I make content for you guys. So yeah, that's not true. I make content for me too. I like learning, and the easiest way to learn something is to teach it. You got to learn it once to understand it. You got to learn it a second time to go ahead and teach it. So yeah, I'm a little selfish. I like to learn, so I do that for me, but I also like making these videos for you. So And there goes the printer. All right. I think we're going to call that a day. But again, if you want to stay in touch, Twitter, @TheRealDanVega. You can find me on danvega.dev. Here's all the socials. Reach out to me if there's something you want to see me do on stream or create content. Let me know. Be happy to do it. But until then, we'll see if we can't come back tomorrow and do something fun. See you, everyone. Have a good one.